Cool too.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Constance Carter. I am here with Dr. Boyce Watkins. I am honored to have him. Robert Antonin is our co-host today, and we are going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff that is concerning you. I learned about Dr. Boyce Watkins several years ago before he became a personal friend of mine. The way I first learned, well, I used to always see him, always online, talking about things that were important to me, the same things that he talks about are causes that are really important to me and who I am. I purchased his stock program at the Black Business School for my kids. And this is what I did. If anybody's familiar with the parable of the talents, the story in the Bible is where the master gives his three servants talents. He gives them an investment. He basically says, I'm going to give you this investment. What are you going to do with it? One like buried it, one spent it, and one came with a return. And I did that with my kids. My daughter was 16 at the time. And my son so she was 16. My oldest son was 11. My other son was 9. And my other son was 7. And I said, if you take this training, I'm going to give you $1,000 each to start investing in stock. This was the Dr. Boyce Watkins stock program. I'm going to give you $1,000 a piece to start investing in stock. So gave it to my daughter. She was just all into social media, Snapchat. She felt like she was already rich. She ain't needed. My other three sons, my youngest son, he was 7, so he had the attention span of a gnat. It didn't work. My middle son, my little middle, he kind of wanted to do it, but he really couldn't stay focused. But my oldest son, Warren Jr., Duders, he took that. He learned all about it. I even have a video that I shared with Dr. Watkins. And I was asking him all the questions that he learned there. I was like, what's liquidity? What's equity? What's this? And he knew about it and signed him up for an Ameritrade account. He took that $1,000 and he turned it into over $8,000 over the course of a couple of years. So, but that was, I totally attribute, my son Warren. Right now, he's investing in Robinhood, and he's looking at that. In fact, you know what he just asked me yesterday? He said, "Mom, when you get that $500 from the government, can I use that to invest in stock?" I said, absolutely. Now, none of them other trifling ones asked me that, but my oldest son, he had the right idea. I said, absolutely, baby. I'm going to give that to you, and you can put it in your Robinhood account. You can start investing in stock. So I attribute that to Dr. Boyce Watkins, and everything that he does for our community, I just absolutely admire, and I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you're doing in the community. I love your controversy. I love looking at your feeds, and I mean, you have me cracking up. Some of the stuff you said, I was like, this dude is wild. You be pissing people off. I mean, I love it all. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I pissed people off. I didn't know that. I everybody liked everything I was saying. What's this about? What?
He is wild. I need you guys to start following Dr. Boyce Watkins because this man is absolutely wild, but he's so intelligent. And for somebody who went to a PWI and have the same causes that you have about our people is something that's not really, that's not a normal thing. And for someone who has the level of education that you have, and for you to still be focused on what you focus on is absolutely amazing. And I love it.
Well, thank you for saying that. And my goal, if I can name at least one of a couple of goals I had in life, it is to not make that such a strange thing. It shouldn't be. I mean, if you want to understand why Black folks are not winning in certain areas, I mean, just think about what you just said, which is true, that it's rare that somebody who went to a PWI who has my education level to actually focus on their own people.
Right.
I mean, that right there in a nutshell describes about at least 80-90% of the reason that we're struggling as a community. If, for example, my fiance gets on me because I don't spend any time cleaning my room. And so as a result, my room looks like the Terror Dome. It's a mess. I feel sorry for her having to share a bedroom with me, but it is the reason that the reason that my room is a mess is because I don't put my energy into keeping it clean. That's not where I put my best. So as a result, it's a mess. So in the Black community, We got thousands and thousands, maybe millions of intelligent Black professionals with lots of brain power, lots of wealth, lots of free time, lots of spending power. And they don't put that back into their own people, not at a significant level, not as much as they put it into what everybody else has got going on. So does it really surprise us if our community's a mess, if we're not putting our best foot forward when it comes to building our community?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. You know, Dr. Boyce, I can think of one word to describe you, and that's unapologetic. Right? Very few of us are unapologetic because we had the example of the 60s. And I remember watching Netflix, you know, every Black leader that stood up and wanted to be the voice of our people, they were either harassed, vilified, or killed, right? So here you are being unapologetic with your messaging. And so the question that I have for you is that when we were growing up, we certainly had a huge emphasis being put on education. But with the rise of so many overnight millionaires in the field of entrepreneurship, is it still that the traditional path to go to a PWI or HBCU? Because there seems to be such a large plethora of today's culture that doesn't come from your background, can hardly speak King's English, but they still have found a way to find success. So where are you with that?
You know, I will first and foremost make it 100% abundantly clear that I am not against traditional education at all. You know, a lot of us who went to college, it was a lot of fun. You learned a lot. It was a great experience in a lot of ways. And in a way, you think about, if you want to talk about like formulas for success, you know, how to get ahead in life, think about it like a basketball game, right? You know, if you ask a basketball player, what's the best way to win the game? You know, is it better to shoot free throws or to shoot jump shots? Or should I dunk the ball or should I shoot a 3-pointer? Well, there's no one answer to that question. True. You know, no basketball players gonna say, "Oh, you should only shoot 3-pointers." No, he says you got to score more points than the other team by finding some way to get the ball into the basket. And you can get the ball into the basket in a lot of different ways. And also because the game is constantly changing, the method by which you get the ball in the basket is going to have to evolve as well. Because one thing we know about, you know, just to use a sports analogy, one thing that's clear about sports, you know, is that if somebody only has one move, it's easy to stop a player with one move. Yeah. You know, Michael Jordan, for example, he didn't have as wide of a range of moves early in his career as he did later. And that's how the Detroit Pistons stopped him. They said, "Oh, we know what he's going to do, so we pretty much know how to stop the Bulls." Yep. And it wasn't until they widened the arsenal and pulled in a Scottie Pippen and pulled in some other, Jordan expanded his range of possible moves that they were able to get past that obstacle. So, what I say to people is, if you talk about figuring out success, I would say it comes down to, number one, understand the game you're playing, what your goals are, and how the game is changing, and get yourself a wide range of moves so you can just put that ball in the basket. So if wealth is if putting your ball in the basket means having wealth, well, there's a lot of different ways to obtain wealth. You'd be pretty well off to know what those different methods are. Starting with things like real estate ownership. In fact, just going into that, among other things, right? But just that makes me think about it, since both of you are well versed in real estate. I thought it was fascinating when I watched that Michael Jordan documentary that everybody was talking about that was on last night. And I said, so here you go. You have this guy, Michael Jordan, greatest athlete, one of the greatest athletes of all time, probably in the 1% of the 1%, in terms of his skill set, one of the greatest on earth to have ever done what he did. And yet at the same time, he wasn't all powerful. There was this short little fat guy that was telling him what to do,
Yeah. Man.
So I said, pay attention, Black people. You want to send your kids to basketball camp to teach them the moves of Michael Jordan. You might want to also send them to financial camp so they can learn the moves of the little short white man that was telling him what to do, because he might dribble basketball to save his life, right? So it's about knowing all the different moves that are out there. That's what I think it comes down to.
Wow.
With that being said, though, because you're talking about education, okay, so now I'm going to ask you, HBCU, PWI, or no college at all? What do you think?
I think it definitely depends on the person, but as a parent who's about to send one off to college next year, we've had that conversation. And first of all, my decision has been, and his mother's decision has been, that we're gonna let the final decision be his, right? You make the final choice based on who you are and where you want to go. But going back to the point we were talking about before, just know all your moves, right? So we have conversations about I told him, I said, I think I know who you are a little bit in terms of what you want. I noticed that you have this fascination with fancy cars. Like he's the kind of person where we could drive down the street and I could point out a car and he could tell me what kind of engine's in the car and what model it is and all that. So he loves cars. And I said, you love all these fancy cars, but these cars cost like $250,000. And I said, a regular person with a regular job can afford $250,000 car. I said, but you're good with science and technology. Well, so is Elon Musk. Elon Musk could have become an engineer and got a good job working at, GE or something. Or, he could become who he is now, which is this guy who literally, I don't know if y'all know that, but right before the market crash, Musk was set to get a $55 billion cash payment from Tesla. With billion with a B, $55 billion payment, right? But the market crashed like right before it happened, and because it was all contingent on the stock price. So we have those conversations, and then it's sort of like, okay, given his mom's a college professor, so we're real big on we believe in formal education. We believe that that it has merit, and so with HBCUs, the challenge there is I said, okay, the PWIs are probably going to give you money, because they're trying to get the black kids and everything. I don't know if the HBCUs are going to give you the same scholarship package, so it's kind of like that. But in terms of the quality of the experience, if I'm choosing between the PWI and the HBCU, it's HBCU all day. Because I just think, and I'm saying this as a person who went to a PWI,
Right.
At University of Kentucky, I felt like an outsider the entire time I was there. I never felt like I was really a part of that school. I felt like I was just there to get what I came for and to leave. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized, from talking to some of my friends, that an HBCU experience would have actually given me something where years later I would reflect on my college years in a positive way. I don't see my college years as a bad experience. It's just like, yeah, I went there and I got my degree and that was it. But as far as like being able to look back and thinking about all these friends I have and these formative relationships I created at that time, I don't have that. So I think HBCUs from a personal standpoint, and I think happiness should be a big part of everybody's equation. From a happiness standpoint, I'm all for the HBCU experience.
I agree. I had to look at it that way too. I got my PhD, my public high school diploma. So I did not go away I did not go to a 4-year college. And that was my biggest regret in my life. So for me and my children, I instilled HBCU into them since they were, babies. But my thing has always been, if you're not going to be, college is really an experience. I'm sending my daughter, I'm paying $40-something thousand a year for my daughter to go to get an experience, to get a network of people, to get that. Because I really believe, as an entrepreneur, if she wants to be an entrepreneur, she doesn't need college for that. So, you can, unless she's going to be a doctor, which she's not, unless she's going to be a lawyer, which she's not, I'm really sending her to school for the experience, right? And the connections and the networking and all of that stuff. So for that purpose, for her to have the type of experience that I know that she would never be able to have at a Berkeley or anything else, sending her to Hampton was the best thing that I could have ever done for her. So, I'm proud of that. I'm proud that HBCU has been everything for me. And I know, Robert, you went to Howard, right?
Yep, that is correct. I eat you in the house all day, and I love being at Howard. There's some negative things that I can tell you, but I wouldn't trade the experience for anything in the world because, as we all have learned over our lifetimes, that relationships are the new currency. If you have no relationships, your opportunities are limited. If you have no relationships, it's hard to excel in business. But Dr. Boyce, I'd like to go back to, since you did go to a PWI, how in the world did you become so passionate about the plight and the journey of Black folks? Because, your pedigree says you went to ... university. However, your life's work has been totally laser focused on your people. How did that come about? Because going to a PWI, I would think that you'd be the accounting, with wingtips on, or you'd be a lawyer in a Jewish law firm, So how did that come about? I mean, was there a moment? Was there a movement? Was there a message? How did it come about?
I think that initially my battle for empowerment for my community and for just as a Black man, it actually started with a battle against racism, white supremacy, discrimination, things like that. I think that there's something personal that has to occur in order for you to really feel connected to that plight. So when I was right after I finished college and I was at Indiana University, I happened to be there right during the time with Newt Gingrich and those guys and Rush Limbaugh's and all those guys came out, and there was this sort of really interesting wave of what felt like racism, in the middle of the Republican Revolution and all that stuff. And at that time, I characterized a lot of the racial issues to be, the liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican stuff. Since that time, my thoughts have really evolved tremendously, but at that time, that's what I saw, and I remember just sort of being almost taken aback, when you think the world operates one way and then you start finding out that you were just fed a bunch of BS your whole life. It's just, you realize you've been lied to your whole life. I'm respecting your platform, so I'm gonna say BS.
No, I want to hear about this. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
I was gonna say bullshit, but I'm not gonna say.
Come on, let's keep it real. Let's keep it real.
But yeah, you and I think that just that disillusionment just it starts to eat away at you, and some people can internalize all that microaggression and just be okay with it and find a way to cope. And I wasn't one of those people, because I'm one of those people who happens to believe that I should be treated fairly, if that I should be treated like a human being. I don't accept this idea that somehow you're going to put me in these boxes of inferiority and neglect and mistreatment and all this other thing. I'm not prepared to accept that. So in a way, in my mind, I felt like I was kind of going to war with all of this. And it just led me down this rabbit hole of exploration. It starts with yourself, find out who you are. And then once you figure out who you are, then you make a decision whether you're going to come out the closet or not, and because I was the guy who would wear the wingtips and, try to fit in because that's what we're taught. And then eventually you're like, man, I'm taking off this monkey suit. I'm not doing that anymore, And now the problem is that, a lot of us don't understand that. I mean, we really don't understand that freedom isn't free. When you really start thinking about it and analyzing it in an honest way, you realize that, that if you're going to come out with a certain disposition, if you're going to say certain things, carry yourself in a certain way, there's going to be a price for that. Even though as mad as I was that a lot of the white universities stayed away from me when I started doing more, racially driven sorts of content, I actually thought about it. I said, if I were them, I probably wouldn't hire me either. And I had to say, and when you see things that way, you realize, okay, well, what's the solution here? Well, I figured out, I said, if I can just figure out how to pay my own bills without asking for anybody's permission, then I'm free to do whatever I want. That's it. That's what it comes down to. 90% of that which ends up enslaving us comes down to who's paying your bills.
That's right.
So and I said, wait a minute. So all these people out here, you got, millions of white men that can pay their own bills. So why can't I? So that's when I realized entrepreneurship was sort of the one big thing that would make a big difference. Because when you get your money right, you get a lot more confidence than when you're on shaky financial ground. So
I was just telling my agents that this morning.
Oh, please go ahead.
No, I was just telling my agents that this morning in terms of, when you have money in your pocket, it's a little bit easier for you to do your business on a day-to-day, than when you're struggling. It's a little bit harder to focus on what you need to be focused on. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Money is a funny thing, Constance. In my mind, I remember I used to think I loved money, right? That's why I majored in finance, because I thought I really, really loved money. And what I realized was that the reason I thought I loved money is because I didn't have any money. Like when you're hungry and you really want to eat, But after
really love food.
yeah, after you're full, then maybe you go do something else. You don't keep on eating, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe if you got to go to the bathroom, the bathroom is the most important thing in the world until you get there, and then after that, you think about something else. So to me, I believe that, and this doesn't apply for everybody, but when I started thinking about what money meant to me, I said, I think I just need to focus on money so I can have enough money to not have to think about money anymore. And then I could get to the point of actually living, right? So money, money can keep score. Money is a valuable tool to do the things you want to do for your family, for yourself, whoever it is you want to serve. But I found that the freedom, it was almost like so having enough money to be free, go outside and you're in the fresh air, and now you're like living life. You're not in a cage anymore. Because I think the lack of money for many of our people, this is why financial literacy is so important. The lack of money keeps many of us in a cage where on a day-to-day basis, you get up and there's a list of all the things you would like to do, but you can't look at that list because there are all these things that you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So I learned, fun fact about Dr. Boyce Watkins today, boys and girls, I learned that he's a finance major. So most of our conversation has been driven by money. So we're always told to get money, get money, get money. But rarely do we teach or talk about investing. So if I had to put you on the hot seat right now and ask you, which way would you steer informed minds who want to know, invest in real estate or invest in stock? Because I know plenty of people who have, made a killing from the stock market. And I also know some independently wealthy brothers who have went the real estate game. So I know it's not a either or both and, but if you had to choose and steer us one way or the other, which way would you go?
You know what? I will say, Robert, I don't have like sort of an unconditional answer for that question. It's like the basketball thing, right? Should you a layup or a 3-pointer? Well, it depends on what's open, what the defense gives me, right? And so what I'll say is ideally it should be both, in my opinion. Just as part of having a balanced portfolio,
diversified.
Right, properly diversified. I'm invested in real estate. I'm not an expert like Constance is, like yourself, but I know enough to know that I need to be there because I know enough to also know that while the stock market has been good to me and good to a lot of people, it's not always going to be there. It's not, something where you put all your eggs in that basket, right? So ideally, I like stock investing as kind of that first step into ownership, mainly because you can become an owner of a piece of a company in 5 minutes on your Cash App. You can just hop on and just buy. Like I can show everybody watching, we can show them how to buy stock in 5 minutes, right? And even that makes a huge difference in a person's trajectory. Like literally, if a person learned nothing about economics, never took a finance class, and just simply bought $20, $30 worth of stock every week, that person would have thousands of dollars in wealth over time. The studies all show this. And so it's a matter of getting
Dr. Boyce, say that one more time. Say for the people in the back in the cheap seats, you said if somebody did what with how much every week, say that again, please, sir.
Well, let me be specific. I actually, there's a book I give away. People go to firstshareofstock.com. There's a book I give away that I call the $5 investment plan. And basically it shows mathematically that, and this has been true throughout history, if you were to invest $5 a day, $5 won't even buy you a Popeye's chicken sandwich with the drink and the fries, right? If you invest $5 a day and you do that consistently every day, it doesn't even matter what you buy. If you randomly pick stocks and you did $5 a day, in 10 years, I think that person would have $29,000 in liquid assets. In 20 years, they have $102,000 in liquid assets. In 30 years, they have $245,000 in liquid assets. In 40 years, they have $750,000 in liquid assets. It sounds crazy. It sounds impossible. People don't believe it. And that's why it's such an it's such a fun little mathematical magic trick to do, because people don't understand the power of compound interest. You have to remember, Albert Einstein said that the greatest force in the universe is not gravity, it's compound interest, because because basically money grows virally, just like this corona stuff, like it grows virally in the sense, and you all know this. So I'm definitely, preaching to the choir on this, but money grows in a way that is absolutely fascinating. But the key is you just need that ingredient of time, and you need consistency. If you are consistent across time, then there is almost no way for you to remain poor. Unless you deliberately do something to mess it up, like you go out and borrow $100,000 you can't pay back or something like that, which a lot of us have done with student loans, right? So you have to be cautious with that. But if you're consistent and you do something like that $5 a day strategy, the math plays out. It's the same way Warren Buffett actually showed, where he bought, when he was like I guess 12 years old or something, in the 1940s, he bought $114 worth of shares in some S&P company or something. And the company's growth rate didn't exceed the S&P 500. It was a pretty typical stock. He said that $114 investment is worth almost $500,000 today.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I explained to my students is I say, look, it's really, I don't know how to tell you how to be rich in 6 weeks. I'm not a rapper. I can't get you a record deal. But it's very easy for me to show you how you could be rich in 15, 20 years. It may not be easy for me to show you how you can be rich right away, but it's very easy for me to show you how your children can be wealthy by the time they grow up. That's basic math. And so if people want to really understand what it means to build these $1 million families and all this other stuff, just, it starts with, it's a personal choice in the sense of saying, I need you to really understand your role in this intergenerational process. Carry your fucking load. Excuse my French. Do your damn job. Do your job. Your job is to do some basic things now, make some basic investments now, so that your children, by the time they get to a certain age, are in a much better position than you. They've got the gift of time. So you don't have to be a financial genius to make this work. You just have to have a little bit of a vision, and that's the point. So yeah, it's not that complicated, honestly. So I think stock investing is a great place to start. So I believe every child in America, in our community, should own stock by the time they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. No excuses. If you can buy them a pair of Jordan, you can buy them a share of stock. If you can buy them Popeye's chicken sandwiches, you can buy them. There you go. Secondly, every child should learn at least some basics about real estate at an early age. Real estate, there's some terminology you got to learn. There's it's not something you dive into without kind of, having some guidance and some training. But at the very least, understanding the difference between being a landlord and a renter and why your goal is to not be a renter for your entire life. That's a big deal. I grew up, I don't know about y'all, but I grew up in a house where a lot of people thought renting for life was kind of normal. My parents did eventually buy a house, but I know a lot of people who just rent their whole life because they think that's just what you're supposed to do, right? Yeah. So the third piece is, by the age of 12, I believe every Black child should know the basics of starting their own business. And not so they can become an entrepreneur. Maybe they don't want to be entrepreneurs, but so they can understand all the different economic moves that are available to them, just in case white folks ain't hiring no more. Like your economic survival should not be contingent upon whether or not they like you enough to give you a job. So, and I think now is probably the best time to know that those jobs can just disappear like that.
Yeah, that part.
Stop real estate, owning your own business. Stop real estate, owning your own business. And when we talk about, before I even go there, I want you guys, we got a lot of comments, and I want you guys to keep sharing. Everybody is loving everything that you're talking about, Dr. Boyce. Mia Jordan said, "You're fearless." She said, "Dr. Boyce Watkins for president." And everybody is just exclamating what you've been saying. But you guys, I want to make sure that you share this information, because this information is so vital. It's so vital for you, but it's not only vital for you, it's vital for all of your friends and your family. They need to hear this like the air that they breathe. This is so important. And the point I wanted to make was, within our community, how the wealth gap is just widening and widening and widening, right? Our net worth on average for African American households is about $1,800, $2,000, while our white counterparts is over $100,000. And of course, that's due to systematic racism, redlining, predatory lending, and 400 years of inequities, obviously. But one of the things that I know for sure is that now we're at a point where I'm in real estate. We're getting into real estate, but we're not diversifying our portfolios. We're scared of stock. We don't know how to invest in stock. And so number one is, what's a stock that, what's some stock they should invest in. Number two, what's the easiest way? Because you said in 5 minutes, PayPal, Cash App, can get you some stock. So give us a three stocks that we should invest in, and what's the best method of doing that?
Okay, well, in my stock market program, which is part of the Black Business School,
Right.
I do have a section I call "What Dr. Boyce is Buying," and where I share with my students
Okay.
what stocks I'm buying based on my research. And right now is a real sensitive time to buy stock, in the sense that because of all the setbacks, there are some companies that are going to withstand the setbacks better than others. Some companies won't survive. Some companies are actually thriving as a result of the setback. And then you're also looking at long-term impact on the new economy, which is going to be different from the pre-corona economy.
That's right.
And so some stocks that come to mind, I did tell my students about Texas Roadhouse. I like that one.
Why Texas Roadhouse?
It had to do with the strength of their balance sheet and the fact that they're leaders in their particular industry. And among restaurants, they're seen as one of the restaurants that's going to recover and do better than others, in that particular genre. Typically, the blue chippers are the ones that are going to come out of this the strongest. Zoom. It's funny. We started buying Zoom.
Everybody's talking about Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah. Before Corona, we started buying Zoom, and then it shot up during Corona. And they actually believe that there's still some upside with Zoom and Netflix, which it's kind of surprising. It's almost like the unsurprising winners, in the sense of, you almost feel like these companies have already hit their potential, but a lot of analysts are saying that they still have some upside. Now, what I will say too is that there are a lot of my colleagues in academia that would actually disagree with the idea of me recommending stocks, because there are theories in academia. This is a big debate among scholars, almost like a civil war, like Democrat Republican kind of thing, where there are some theories out there, that one called the random walk hypothesis, that basically says that you can't predict what a particular stock is going to do, mainly because their argument is all the information that's out there that will tell you that that's a great pick is already incorporated in the price. If I tell you, oh, there's this great kid in the hood who's going to be the next LeBron James, and you should invest in him now. Well, let's assume he's already been on TV and everybody knows how great he is, right? Then some would say, well, you're not going to be able to go hire him cheap because everybody knows how great he is, right? So some people believe that would stop, but I'm not in that group. I'm in a group that believes that a lot of the market is driven by what they call investor sentiment, meaning how people are feeling, emotions. Human beings are the ones that are moving these prices. And John Rogers, who's a billionaire out of Chicago, feels right now that this is the best time, one of the three best times in the last 30 years to buy stocks. The other two times he said it was in the 07-08 crash, and then he said it again in 1987 during that crash. So generally speaking, if you invest in a way where you're diversified, that's the number one rule of investing, is to diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You're not rolling the dice. You're trying to just be a part of a little bit of everything, and then you just grow with the economy. The number two rule of stock investing, unless you want to drive yourself insane, is to hold what you buy. Warren Buffett, who is what they call a value investor, he believes that if you aren't ready to hold a stock for 10 years, then you shouldn't hold it for 10 minutes. And if you are a long-term investor, then none of this should really bother you that much, because you're thinking about a 10-year, 15-year horizon. And I like that approach, and that's the approach I teach to my students, mainly because I think it's better to invest in a way where you minimize all the unnecessary risks and what people perceive to be all this chaos. In fact, there's actually no 10-year period in American history where a person with a well-diversified portfolio lost money. Like, there's never been a decade where any time in the last 120 years, if you invested in a basic way, where you were just well-diversified and you held longer than a decade, your value always went up. So in a way, it's a little bit like real estate, in the sense of, sort of like Constance, if I were to ask somebody, okay, point out some property in New York that has a lower value today than it had in 1975, it's almost impossible to find, right? If you hold it long enough, eventually you're going to make some money. The only question is, how much are you going to make, right? But you do know that you make more money by investing than you do by not investing, right? So I think that the number one goal for our people is to get our people investing in those basic things that don't require, tons and tons of training and legwork. And so I'll tell you one story that will really kind of seal it, because one of the biggest challenges I have constantly when I talk about investing is breaking down the myths and the lies that people have been fed, mostly from broke people who don't know what they're talking about, who've told them how horrible the stock market is, it's coming to an end, the world's going to burn. I mean, they've been saying that since forever, and it ain't happening. Well, let me tell you the story. There, in 1974, there was a guy named Burton Malkiel who wrote a book called A Random Walk Down Wall Street. And in this book, he had a theory called that random walk hypothesis that I mentioned earlier, and he wanted to prove that hypothesis. And there's another one called the efficient markets hypothesis. And here's how he proved the theory. And this is relevant to anybody who's scared of the stock market. What he did was he went and he got a group of monkeys, and he taught the monkeys how to pick stocks. And they're monkeys. They couldn't. It's not like they could read annual reports. They just they would throw darts at a wall. He taught them how to throw darts at a wall, and wherever the dart landed, that was the stock they would pick for the monkeys' portfolio. And so the monkeys would throw maybe 20 darts at a wall. They picked 20 different stocks, and to make sure the monkeys didn't cheat, he blindfolded the monkeys. And he did the experiment, and he repeated it over and over. That's important for scientific validity. You have to do it over and over. So then what he did was he took the basket of stocks that were picked by the blindfold monkeys throwing darts at the wall, and he compared the money that the monkeys made to the smartest, most highly educated experts on Wall Street. I'm talking about multimillionaires who went to Harvard, all of that stuff. And you know what happened?
What?
The monkeys won half the time. Yes, the monkeys won half the time. And so when people start coming into all these reasons why they feel like they can't do it and not smart enough and don't know enough and it's too scary, I just ask them, like, okay, are you smarter than a monkey? The answer is yes, right? If the answer is no, then we need a little bit more.
That's a whole other problem.
Right, we got a whole other set of issues. But and that's what it says. So what it really says is that, sometimes we overthink things. Sometimes we put these personal limitations on ourselves. We think that I'm not ready. I don't know what to do. So we freeze. We get into this rigor mortis where we just sit there and don't move. And we do that for years, even decades. And I'm just saying, just move. Just go forward.
Just move. Just do it. Be like Nike. Just do it. Just do it. What you said is consistency and longevity. And listen, y'all, this is not no get rich quick scheme. You can't go out on the corner and flip your money like you're doing on the street corner. This is not the same thing. You have to have discipline and you have to have patience. And it absolutely will pay off at some point. 10 years. 10 years, but you're not talking about your right now money. You're talking about legacy money. You're talking about money for your family. You're talking about building wealth for your children, your children's children. And if you look at it like that, you will start investing today. Now, what are some platforms that they can start investing with? What do you use?
Well, if you want to learn to buy your first share of stock, I have a free training people can take a look at firstshareofstock.com. That's
right, firstshareofstock.com. I put that in the comments box.
All right, thank you. And so we do a lot in the Black Business School. We have a lot going on. We have almost 100,000 students now. And I'm excited.
100,000 students. Wait.
Yeah, you just dropped that in there real flat. Yeah.
100. We're gonna say 100. 100,000 students. Yes.
Yes. And I'm excited about it because what we were looking for was a low cost, high quality, culturally relevant alternative to an overpriced college education. So it was kind of created to solve a specific problem. Most Black students that graduate from college can't pay their student loans. In fact, if you were to take 100 Black students and send them to college, first of all, 52 of them aren't going to graduate. They're going to have debt, but they won't graduate. Out of the 48 that graduate, half of them will default on their student loans within the first 10 years after they graduate. In fact, the average student in that cohort, I'm talking about the graduates now. This is the talented 10th, if you will. Most of them will have a higher student loan debt 10 years after graduation than they had when they finished. Right. So that's a big problem. And people don't talk about that enough. But that's in my opinion, that's the number one drain on Black wealth. So when you see that statistic saying Black wealth is going to drop to zero, it's basically because the individuals who we historically believe are equipped to be the highest earners in the community are in so much debt that many of them die in debt. And then also they're not equipped in basic wealth building strategies that people like us know about. You know, they're thinking about getting the nice job and the high income, and not so much thinking about, you know, what ownership, you know, property ownership, you know, entrepreneurship, you know, and all the things that actually lead to wealth accumulation in this country.
Let me tell you, Dr. Boyce, I think that student loans are a scam from the pits of hell. They are of the devil. I come across people so much all the time. You know, I had a lady who was a principal. She's making, you know, maybe $150,000 a year, but had over $500,000 in student loan debt because she had a master's or a PhD. I could not qualify this woman who made, you know, her and her husband cumulatively made probably like $300,000. I couldn't approve them for $150,000 home loan. Okay. And she's in the Bay Area, so she was needing about $550,000. I couldn't give her $150,000 because she had so much in student loan debt. Because basically, you know, even if her student loans are deferred and she has $500,000 in student loans, I still have to hit her for $5,000 a month against her debt. $5,000 just in student loans. It is unbelievable. They can't get anything. And, you know, they work hard, and, you know, now she's giving back and she's a principal and she can't even get a house because the student loan debt is so great. So, you know, if you can, I don't know how you can, you know, afford, how you pay for college without student loans, but it is just, they have to do something about this. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm traumatized by that story you told. I'm just kind of sitting back and processing there, like woo, oh yeah, Lord, that's I mean, she had a big mortgage and no house. You know, that's what that is. I mean, you I get
right.
That's exactly what that is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like if you you know, it reminds me. It makes me almost think about somebody who has already gone through a divorce and they're paying child support on a lot of kids, and then you try to form a family with a person who's got who's got an ex-wife and 3 babies mamas. Like, you're not getting a whole man, you're getting a piece of man.
Piece of man.
Like, that's a very small piece.
Yeah, that's kind of what it reminds me of. The student loan debt has I mean, that's gonna be her big mortgage for her life, it sounds like. You know, and so I think as a community we have to sort of shift outside of that and figure out, you know, and I don't think it means that college education is a bad thing or that you shouldn't do it. It means definitely you got to keep that debt minimized, and then on top of that, you want to really be able to score points economically for yourself to be able to knock that debt out. You know, I mean, you think about it. Even if you're making $80,000 or $100,000 a year, if you're sitting on $200,000 in debt, that's hard to do. I mean, your lifestyle is going to be eroded for decades. You know, and I went through that because I had a lot of student loan debt, and I just remember thinking, man, I don't want to go through my life having to fine tooth comb my budget and decide if I can afford the good bologna or the cheap bologna. You know, like, I don't want to live like that until I'm 70 years old. So the solution, rather than going at it with a scarcity mindset, as I said, I'm gonna go at it with an abundance mindset.
Okay.
Sure, this debt is tough to attack if I'm making $6,000 a month, but it's easy to attack if I'm making $60,000 a month. And I saw plenty of white boys out there making $60,000, $100,000 a month. I said, I want to learn what they're learning.
It's doable. Anybody can do it, right?
Yes. And so I went back to school. You know, I had my PhD and everything. I was all educated, but I went back to school. I said, there's clearly some stuff I did not learn. And I want to learn from the entrepreneurs. I want to learn from the people who've really been able to win championships, so to speak, in this economic thing. I don't care how much I don't even ask. Like, if somebody has shown me that they know how to do what I'm trying to learn, I don't care if you have a GED, a PhD, or anything in between. It doesn't matter. I just want to learn what you know how to do, because that's not what a college professor can typically do. College professors are people that have learned a lot of stuff in a lot of books, and they can do research and tell you about the theories. But the self-education, you know, it's that education you get from somebody, that online guru or whatever, that really gets you over the hump, because these are people who've actually had to show and prove in order to get their stripes. And so I suggest to everybody, I don't care what your education level is. I don't care if you went to law school, got an MBA, got a BA, BS, or nothing. get online and find some people, find some gurus.
Google University.
There you go. You can start. You could go to our university if you want, or where you teach, and just wherever. Learn from people that know what the hell they're doing, so they can really help you cut to the chase and learn the skills that are necessary for you to really get what you're looking for.
That's why I love you, Dr. Boyce. I'm sorry. I just want to tell them. That's why I love you, because you are so educated. You went and you whacked up all them student loans for us just to teach us, so that we can go log in for $99.99 or however much your program is, and we can get that same education that you went and paid $300,000 for. So thank you, Dr. Boyce Watkins. We appreciate you. We love you for it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, love you both as well, and it's an honor to talk to you. And I tell you what, I really think that our community is really on the cusp of some amazing things. I think this century is going to be extraordinary for us. We're already the chosen people. We already, survived the middle passage. Everything they threw at us, we just jumped in with leaping, flying colors. But I really think now that we're getting our stride, I just think we're going to do some amazing things. So I'm looking forward to a generation or two down the line. It's probably going to happen after we're gone. The stuff that I want to put in place is the kind of stuff I really think it's not going to activate to the end of the century when I'll be gone. But in my opinion, I believe if we do it right in this generation, like we are an important generation in the wealth building process. Like I believe we are the second coming of the Marcus Garvey generation. So we got to do this right. And if we do it right and plant the right seeds, by the end of the century, our grandchildren will be killing the game. Absolutely killing the game.
I love it.
Yeah.
So check this out, Dr. Boyce. My dad always told me, he was a professor here locally in Washington, D.C. He told me that readers are leaders and leaders are readers. So I love to find people like yourself, Dr. George Fraser, and for the benefit of our listening audience, if you had to throw out a few book titles that every entrepreneur, every person in the know, to change their mindset, are there some books that you can suggest to us? If you can give us your top 3 or just one, if it's your book, whatever, but our people need to know what's happening out there. We need the resource to turn to, because Google University is cool, but a lot of stuff on Google ain't accurate, right? So, I mean, based on the Dr. Boyce Watkins stamp, are there some book titles out there that we need to know about, pick up, and read?
My favorite book is the one I keep next to me all the time, Power.
That's on my stand. Yes,
Dr. Claude Anderson. This is the economic Bible.
The Bible. Yes.
For Black folks. Yes, because it gives that big picture strategy and it slaps us back into reality to just kind of realize that everybody out here ain't your friend. That freedom does have a price to it, and you really have to sort of reshape how you were taught to even view things like equality or achievement or whatever. And so I love Powernomics, and then I have a lot of other Dr. Anderson's books around. There's a really good book I read by I think some white guys. I don't know who they were, but it's a book called Traction, which I don't know who wrote it. They were smart white guys, whoever they were.
But it's called Traction, y'all. Traction.
There you go. The book was called Traction, and my whole team read that book because that shows you how to structure an organization, how to delegate properly. Because that was a big weakness that I had. Is that, and a lot of us, I think, have that weakness because we're such hard workers. We're always thinking like the harder I work, the more success we can accomplish. And then, so what I had to do was sort of get out of that introverted mentality and realize, wait a minute, I have to work with other people and I have to learn to delegate. And working with other people in delegation is difficult because it brings in a new set of skills that I think have to be nurtured. People like George Fraser are extremely good at nurturing these skills, which is relationship management. Creating more friends and enemies and keeping your friends, and then also just, the trust required to realize like you can't do everything by yourself. Right. We have too many solopreneurs out here that are just working themselves into an early grave. In fact, the more success you have, the worse your quality of life becomes because you're working 80, 90 hours a week because you're trying to do everything. And so I went up this first plateau where I was learning how to work harder, harder. And then I hit that point where you can't work any harder. You get to 80 hours a week.
Right. There's only so many hours in a day. Yeah.
Right. So then I started training myself to work less hard. to be like okay with saying, I'm gonna walk away and I'm gonna delegate this to my team, which again required me to sort of pick up a whole different set of skills.
Yeah, when you're smart, you think, hey, I could do it. I could do this. I could do this. And you just grabbing more stuff on your plate, not realizing that your plate is already full. This is something I could do. I'm super. Let me just go ahead and knock that out. I was really, really good at doing that. I said 2020 is a year of delegation. I ain't doing nothing. Here. I ain't doing. I'm sleeping that night. No more.
But you get a job, and you get a job, and you get a job.
Everybody, I'm employing everybody, and even if it's less for my bottom line, I have to give myself the freedom, and I had to say, listen, I am making X amount of dollars. If I'm making $1,000 an hour, why am I doing $20 an hour work, right? I need to give the $20 an hour work to the $20 an hour person, and let me focus on the big picture items. So but it's in our nature, just like you said, because we're hard workers and we're taught to work hard. If we're not working hard, we don't feel like we're being productive.
Yes.
Right? But if we can work smarter and we can have way more money coming in, I could do way more with way less time, put out there. But the question I wanted to ask you was, you talked about this being our generation, and you talked about us sowing the seeds, and we, us being the greatest generation of planters. We are the Harriet Tubmans of the movement. We could have freed a lot more Black people if only they knew that they was financially slaves, right?
Yes.
But with this time that we have in COVID, with COVID-19 going on, and with say just for example, if this was a reset, say this 400 years of inequity was erased, and now everybody's on the same playing field. What should we be doing right now that's going to put us 10 steps ahead of the game as we get out of this pandemic? What should we be doing?
Learning how to do business online. I think that's, the digital economy probably grew tenfold, during this COVID thing. And I personally believe that it just accelerated what was naturally going to happen anyway. Like, so for example, we make movies. We have a division called Boyce Watkins Films where we make films. And so, our goal was to try to get more out into the regular space, whether it's getting into theaters or whatever, doing the Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey kind of thing, and having more stuff that's out there. And I had a friend that works at Oprah Winfrey Studios, and she said, actually, we're trying to do what y'all are doing.
Wow.
we're trying to get online. And so this really forced the process along. And I believe that we're going to have a much more digitized economy than we had before. And I encourage people to really embrace that. And also, I think that for Black people, that's a wonderful thing, because the world is not, in my opinion, broken up as much into geographic breakdowns as much as it's demographics now.
That's right.
Like in the Black Business School, we got Black students from all over the planet. We have students who are not Black, but our people, we're Black first. Like, that's just our top priority. And we have people all over the place, and nobody really cares what city you really live in, because we're all connected in the same space, just like, we're all connected right now. And I think that's the world that we're going to be in for good. I think after COVID's over, people are still going to be scared to go near each other. That ain't never going to go away.
The mental strain that it's going to have on it is going to be is going to exceed far beyond this time. My daughter said somebody tweeted put on Twitter, like, it must be a new world order, because I went on Amazon to order a podcast mic and ain't none left. Everybody doing a podcast right now, but everybody's getting hit to the game. And I think what you're saying about online is so on point, because this is the only place where I really believe that the playing field can really be equal. You don't have to be dependent on the man to employ you. You can really make your own money. Nobody got to know who you are. You could just do whatever you want to do, be whoever you want to be. If you have a good product or a good service, you can put it out there for the masses. And nobody's going to discriminate against you because you're Black or you're a woman or whatever, because you could be whoever you want to be. So I just, if people adopted that and they got away from the victim mentality and they just start doing and start looking at the positive and start looking at what they can do rather than what they can't, we'd be much further ahead of the game, Dr. Boyce Watkins.
I love it. You go, Constance Carter. Hey, listen,
I just want our people to get our stuff together. You know what I'm saying? I'm with you. I'm right with you, because I think so often we just been stuck in this way for so long, and I think this is a great time. I think this is incubation season for us to be able to manifest millions. I really do, if we can switch our mentality on to see the opportunity in all of this. This is a beautiful thing. It can be. Now, I wish I was on a plane somewhere. I wish I was hanging out with you, Dr. Boyce, or you, Robert. I wish I was somewhere other than where I am. But if I'm not, what can I be doing right now to affect what I'm going to be doing when we're out of this? How can I make more money? How can I make more millions? That's what you should be focused on.
You know, I agree with you, and I'll say this too. You know, it's funny when you talk about financial goals and financial freedom and things like that. And the digital economy is a great place to, you know, there's money just circulating everywhere. Even
it's like 1849 and there's gold nuggets all over the floor. I just gotta pick them up.
There really are, you know, and I think everybody should sort of figure out, you know, what does financial freedom mean for you? You know, I think the coolest thing about the quarantine, if there's anything good about this, I don't want to understate the tough parts of it, but the best part I've seen, you know, just from listening to people is that, you know, it's almost like this settled back time where we're getting an opportunity to go back to the way life is supposed to be anyway.
Right.
You know, you're supposed to spend time with your kids. You know, you're supposed to get enough sleep.
I'm tired of them now, though.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, it's you know, but I think it's interesting, and so to me, it's sort of like, okay, you've had a glimpse of what your life's supposed to be.
Really important. Yeah.
Now, you could go back to what you had before. I believe that it's that our relationship with capitalism is an unhealthy relationship in general. I don't think it was good for our physical health, not good for our mental health, not good for our financial health. And so if you think about it, imagine if you're in a toxic relationship with somebody and you get a little break. You get, you know, at first you're sad because they dumped you or whatever, and your feelings are hurt and your heart's broken. But after about 2, 3, 4 weeks, you know, you start realizing, hey, wait, there's other fish in the sea. Wait, you know, and you know, and then maybe 2 months later, they call you and say, hey, I want to know if you'd like to get back together. And by that time, you're like, I don't think I want to go back to that now. You know, and I think that's what this whole situation is. I think we're going to form healthier relationships with life and with ourselves and with the world. And also when you talk about financial freedom, you know, I encourage everybody to remember, you know, to financial freedom does not always just mean making millions of dollars. If that's what you want, go for that, right? But you know, I have there you go. I have a person in my family who is about as financially free as anybody you can imagine, and she doesn't make very much money. But what happens is her income is here, her expenses are here, so she's incredibly free financially. You know, just by the nature of her preference. So I would encourage people to figure out, what does financial freedom mean to you? And then once you get to where you can move money out of the equation, that's when you really get a chance to start living. That's why, you know, I've been quarantined for 20 years. I quarantined myself from white supremacy. I said, I'm not going to some white man's office every day where I can be treated like a Negro. You know, that's not fun for me. You know, so I quarantined myself from that a long time ago. And I noticed a decade ago the positive effect it had on my mental and physical health. You know, not to mention the other basic things like getting enough sleep and doing work that I actually love, working with people I actually want to be around. Yeah. Even when I was broke, that was a superior way of living. Then when I started making money, then it was gravy at that point. I can't go back.
You're right. Never.
Well, check this out, Dr. Boyce. I love the fact that you are so keen on financial literacy. I did hear in the beginning of our conversation that you and the missus are going to postpone that date, right? So obviously, as well as you being financially literate, you know a few things about relationships, right? So I'm gonna ask you anyway. Tell me 3 things that really make a relationship, because we got so many false narratives out here. If you're watching Bravo TV, no disrespect to reality TV, but there's so many false narratives out here about what truly makes a relationship. So if you had to choose, right? If I put you on Chuck Willery's couch, the dating game, I know you remember way back when, but I'm asking you 3 things, 3 ingredients that make a successful man-woman relationship.
Okay, well, I'll start off by sharing something. I had a conversation with my father. My parents have been married for 45 and a half years. And I asked my father's a simple nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes kind of person. You know, he's not a big excuse maker. He's not He's somebody just says, if you want something, you just do it. And so I asked him, I said, so what's the secret to staying married for 45 years? And he said, it's easy. You just don't get divorced. You keep coming home. And now that might seem to oversimplify the process, but what I like about that response is that it doesn't overcomplicate the process. One of the great things that I can say I learned from my father is little basic things that I don't think are real popular anymore, which is that a commitment means you made a commitment. In my mind, and this is just my perception, my view, people can disagree, but my belief is that if you make a commitment to do something, that doesn't mean that you're committed until it becomes uncomfortable or difficult or inconvenient. It means you made the commitment, and I know that that's a controversial way to kind of look at it, but it explains also why I took so long to make the commitment. When I was in my 20s, I had friends that would get married like that, and they get married, have 2-3 girlfriends on the side, so they'd make a commitment because the commitment didn't mean nothing. They'll promise you $1 million next week, because they know they're not going to give you anything, whereas in my mind, I always said, well, if I commit to this, I got to really commit. And I said, I don't know if I'm prepared for that kind of, I want to make it, but it has to be the right circumstances, because one of the biggest wealth killers that there is divorce. Divorce will murder your wealth. In fact, in the average divorce, the wealth level of the husband and the wife drops by 70%. Both of them, because the courts are getting all your money. Dr. Drew did a great documentary called Divorce Corp, CORP, that shows how the family court industry is a $10 billion a year industry that makes money off of people's relationships and family problems. So to me, given that your family is really your first small business, that's the first business you manage is your own family. I think that it is just a smart investing strategy to invest in your family, to invest in your relationships. So before you link up with somebody, for the men, I tell them, don't go just trust the big button to smile. Take your time, do your research, do your due diligence before you make that investment. Same thing with the ladies as well, right? We unfortunately see people fall in love like that and link in like that. And then next thing you know, you got a bunch of headaches and a bunch of problems you have to solve and a big fat distraction that will keep you from accomplishing the things that you were trying to accomplish in the first place. So just for full disclosure, Alicia and I, from the beginning of our relationship, we started doing relationship counseling just so that we could either avoid issues or find a productive way to work through issues. I found that your ability to resolve your dispute is far more important than your ability to avoid disputes. You're not going to avoid disputes. You're going to have disagreements. You're going to have issues you don't see eye to eye. The question is, how do you handle that? Right. Mm-hmm. I saw a study somewhere where they said they could they could tell with very high accuracy which couples were going to stay married and which ones were going to stay divorced by listening to them argue for like 5 minutes. Literally, they can listen to them argue, just the tone of the argument, the way you respond to each other, the whether you're an escalator or a de-escalator, all those factors played a part. So I would say that that's important. Just, to me, commitment should mean commitment. I just
equals commitment. Put that in the comments.
There you go. The second point, the second thing I would throw out there is when I gave my speech at my brother made the horrible mistake of making me his best man, and I gave the best man speech at his wedding, and I don't know why he would ever do anything that crazy. But when I gave the speech, I like to keep it simple, and one of the things that I truly believe about healthy relationships is don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. I don't believe
it's simple.
Alrighty then.
Keep it simple. Yeah, I believe when people talk about somebody being a good person or a bad person, I think that's a little bit overstated and overrated in the sense that I don't know if I believe that there's such a thing as good people and bad people, because you can have somebody that's a serial killer who might be nice to you. Like if he thinks he's going to have sex with you, or if you're his friend, he might be nice to you, right? But he's still a serial killer, right?
Right. He's not going to kill you, but he's going to kill somebody else, right?
Exactly. Or you can have the opposite. You can have good people who do bad things, right? And what I realize is that for most people, I believe that, whether I'm a good person or a bad person in that moment comes down to partly to a conscious choice of whether I'm going to put my best foot forward or if I'm going to, step forward in a negative way. I've been a good person and I've been a bad person. And a lot of it comes down to just maybe how I choose to respond to something, how I'm feeling that day, how I feel about you. Right. And so ultimately, when I think about my woman, my Black woman, and I think that's very important as Black men to make sure we shout that out. That is a very important person in my life. And even on my worst days where I'm the biggest asshole on earth, I'm not going to be an asshole to that woman because of how important she is to me. I put my bullshit to the side, and because you're supposed to respect that queen in your house. Or
shout out to Alicia. Tell her I said, hey, shout out. Yes, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And sometimes we do it. Sometimes we go the opposite direction. Sometimes the people that are closest to us are the ones who get the worst treatment.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? When they have that saying, "Don't shit where you eat." Why would you? The people that really are down for you, the people that really love you, the people that are really loyal to you. Why are you abusing those people? I guess it's because we feel like we can get away with it and the consequences are low, but it doesn't make any sense. Or like the man who goes to work and has a rough day and he don't like his boss, so he comes home and beats his wife. No, beat up your boss. Do that.
That's right.
So those are a couple of thoughts that come to mind. I hope that helps.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I love it because as a single man, I certainly would love to have the recipes for a great relationship. But I love the commitment piece. I mean, I think most people will struggle with that one part right there. I mean, truly being committed. So I can certainly appreciate that. And then having strategies, with how to deal with conflict, right? Mm-hmm. Because conflict will happen. Dr. George Fraser said it to us best. He said, you need to learn to have amnesia, right? Because she's going to do some dumb stuff and I'm going to do some dumb stuff. He used a different word, but he said, you got to have dumb amnesia.
He said dumb shit.
Yeah, that amnesia comes in handy. Yeah. If you hold grudges for a long time, I think it's real hard to hang in there in a relationship. You got to have the ability to hit the reset button.
Yeah, I can hold it.
Yeah. Like sometimes I even tell Alicia, I say, I when I go on my trips, I used to travel a lot more than I do now. I settled it down because I want to try to actually be a normal husband, at least as normal as I can be. And but I told her, I said sometimes I need to travel so that I can get a chance to miss you, and really know what I got at home. It's like, think about it, like your favorite song. If you hear your favorite song every single day, it might not be your favorite song after a while, right? So I told her, I said, baby, you're my favorite song. And I love to listen to you every day, but sometimes I need a couple of days.
Sometimes I need some hip hop. Sometimes I might need some heavy metal or something.
Right. Now I ain't gonna listen too hard to no other songs or nothing like that. But in fact, there'll be no music during the time that
we go. I love it.
But I need a couple of days on the road so that because when you come back to something, you can appreciate it more, So I think just whatever your tactic is, I think that's really what it is. It's sort of and that's why counseling is great. Whether it's watching YouTube videos or by relationship counselors or reading books, all those things basically to me expand your arsenal of response strategies when you run into difficult situations. And I think when they say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, I think a lot of our long-term relationship problems can be prevented just by doing our due diligence, like taking your time to get to know somebody before you invest your life in that person. Really, I mean, a lot of us scared to, buy a share of stock because we're scared to invest a couple of dollars. Well, you invest your life and your body and your spirit into this person and you've known them for a week.
Right.
No, I mean, I can't tell you, just keeping it 100. I can't tell you how many times I dodge landmines by just saying, she seems like a great woman, but I'm just going to sit back and observe for a while. There was one lady, I swear to God, this is a real story. I'm telling myself. There was one lady, this was when I was single and ready to mingle. And I'm telling you, when I go places, you run into, great Black women and stuff, but I was, taught early that stuff will get you in trouble. So I always kind of kept it at bay. But I remember I met this lady. She was so great, so pretty. I mean, and just a sexy, just delicious black woman. You know how black women are, just amazing, right? And I was thinking like, okay, she seems like somebody that I'm really, they're gonna check out. But I took my time, right? I just kind of, got to know, observed her from a distance. You see people's social media posts so you can see how crazy they are, right? Because if you watch my posts, you know that I'm definitely crazy. And and one day I saw where she had this long social media post where she was apparently woke up that day mad at her ex-husband or something, and literally blasted all his business to the whole world, all down to, like, I'm talking about 1,000-word post about every single thing that he did. And I said, oh my God. And so, it's because in my mind, that violated a fundamental rule. Kissing and telling. I think that's just unethical. I don't care. Unless somebody really did something terrible to you. Men, think about that. A man who sleeps with a woman and then goes out and is like, yeah, let me just tell everybody what you don't do that. You're not supposed, So I remember thinking to myself, I'm so happy that I took my time, because when you meet someone, they're tempting to you, it's very tempting to move quickly, but really you're making an investment, and all good investors do their due diligence before they put a lot of their resources into a project. And relationships are one of the hugest projects that you'll ever invest in your life.
Wow. You said that because, people will have babies with people that they're not willing to be long-term committed to. So let alone just having a commitment with somebody, but you will share a baby with somebody that's crazy as hell that you have not done your due diligence with. So you're absolutely on point with that. You said I saw on your page the other day, you said love or money. And that was, I obviously know the answer to that, but what's more important for you, love or money?
Oh, it's got to be love.
Yeah.
Why? Because real love is.
What if you was broke? What if you were poor?
Oh, you're talking about in a relationship. Okay. Well, for me as a man, it's love because I don't need the money, right? I'm old school traditional in the sense that as a man, I was just always taught that if you can't provide, then you a bitch. Like that. That's just kind of what I was raised as a man. Really, if your woman walk around broke and your kids are dirty and can't eat, that's an area of a man.
That's right.
Yeah. I think So to me, I think the money part. I've never in my life ever thought, oh yeah, I want to date someone that's financially secure, because that just wasn't something I necessarily needed. But one thing I can say though is that money does make a difference in the sense of. Especially if you have a little something to lose, you're better off. I think you're taking a big chance if you're with someone who has nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if you're balling, you're doing well, you link up with somebody who's not doing well, but now they're doing well because you're doing well. Well, then that makes it difficult to end the relationship. Once the relationship's over, they're still clinging on to you. Like, remember Jill Scott married that broke guy or whatever. And he was trying to say, the prenup was illegal and this. Is
that Mary J. Blige?
It wasn't. Well, Mary J. Blige went through it. Jill Scott went.
Well, both of them did.
Yeah, they both did. Yep. I think, and I remember Sherry Shepherd had some crazy stuff going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So generally speaking, and we know, what happens to a lot of the men as well. And so to me, I think having somebody that just has their own stuff is a comfort, I will say, as I get married, we talked about a prenup and it was a no brainer. We were both like, yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's because we're grown and it's not a big deal. Maybe 20 years ago, it would have been a different conversation. But we don't think it threatens the love at all. It's just like, good contracts really, in my view, create just a clean break in the event that there is a break. It creates, order in the midst of what could become chaos. And so, I do know that that there is a comfort in sort of just knowing, okay, you got your stuff and you trying to take care of your stuff. I'm not going to take your stuff. You're not trying to take my stuff. So, but let's hope that we stay together and we share stuff.
But you know what? Listen, in our community, it's so often that the women make more than the men. We're more educated, and we're kind of just, not me, but just, women in general, we're just kind of pulling our men along with us, and men are just not stepping up to the plate like we need them to be, or, just the lack in the amount of men, good men are out there. end up settling. We end up having to pull the weight. I talk to women all the time, and the story is the same thing. Like, the men are just not stepping up. Like, what can we do about, it's because it's not unfortunately, you guys are not the standard. I mean, you're the exception and not the rule in our community a lot of the times. So what are we supposed to do as women?
I'll say this. I don't think it's really necessarily my role to tell women what to do on that, because what you're talking about is super real. I can describe it based on what I've seen in my view in terms of the explanation. Now, whether the explanation is an excuse is up to the listener. But first of all, that mass incarceration stuff, that we talk about a lot, that did a number on our community. When they started locking up all those men, you're not just taking away the men in that generation, you're taking away the men in the next generation as well. I don't care what anybody says. A man who's raised by a man is very different from a man who's raised by a woman. It doesn't mean that he's not worthy or that he can't, fulfill the obligations of manhood. It's just different. Like my daughters would be very different if they were raised by me without their mothers. I mean, why I have one biological daughter, by the way. I have some adopted kids. So that's real. In fact, The Economist actually The Economist magazine did a study that showed that for every, small percentage increase in the incarceration rate, there's a proportionate decrease in the percentage of Black women that get married. So that incarceration epidemic is a real thing. What also must be acknowledged and understood as well, in my opinion, is that, I think that we can, in a very non-sexist way, acknowledge that, the standard corporate economy, the whole get a job economy is different for women than it is for men. I just believe that since, Black men got off slave ships, they've been seen as a different kind of threat from anybody else. And so, when that man is hiring, for his company, I believe he is more likely to hire a woman or a gay man or a beta male than he is to hire, a Black alpha male. And so with that being said, what that then does is that puts the ball in the court of Black men and all those who love them and who are raising them to understand that Black men have to fight for our space in the world. Like we, because there's so many Black men out here who, I'm talking about educated guys too, who, went to Brown University and got an MBA from Duke, and they're just mad because they can't get the same opportunities in corporate America that the white guys get. Well, that's because the white guys kind of run the show. They built the show for themselves, and it's not fair. We know how they built it. We know about the wealth that was stolen. We know all of that history. Okay, now what you gonna do?
Now what?
Right, now what? Are we going to just complain about it? That's not going to solve anything, right? So I'm a big believer that if a Black man wants to be a king, he should be trained on how to build a castle. Because if a man has a castle, it doesn't even matter if the castle is not a big castle.
Yeah,
there's still just something that you get as a man when you can say you're the king of a castle. And I'll even throw myself out there as an example of that, actually, not keep it too personal, but think about this. I'm marrying a woman who's a college professor just like me. She has, the job at the white university, and the white folks, they love her. Now, me, I was pretty much blackballed from academia. I got the same credentials that she's got, but her university wouldn't hire somebody like me. In fact, over 15 years ago, I actually talked to them about working there, and they just, because all the Black stuff, they were like, we got to think about it, right? And in fact, on her campus, they only have one other Black male faculty member on the entire campus. And he actually comes to me to complain about how bad they're treating him and how they're trying to get rid of him. Right. Yeah, I actually had to go support and defend him when they, were doing some crazy stuff to him. So my point is to say that, what saved my manhood was the ability to say, you know what, I have a business. I'm doing fine. I don't have a reason to sit over here and be mad because they accepted you and won't accept me. Right. But that's reality. That's life, and I think it's important to understand how life really works so that your ears aren't filled up with a bunch of the BS about how life is supposed to work. So you don't, because people who grow up on this fantasy of equality, they just spend their whole lives mad. That ain't fair. That ain't fair.
That ain't fair. Life ain't fair. Life is not fair. Yeah.
Life is not fair. Right. So I think, like I give you another example. I had a friend who this is typical, right? This is funny. She was a filmmaker and she had a boyfriend who was like a filmmaker / actor, and they were hustling around Hollywood trying to get jobs or whatever. So so she meets this white guy out in across the country in Philly somewhere, who was intrigued with her work, thought her work was great, wanted to hire her, offered her this great job and all this money, right? So she's like talking to him, negotiating. So she goes and sits down with him and says, I think the offer is great. I'd like to come out there. And because she wanted him to, he wanted her to move. And she said, so can I, is there a place for my boyfriend? He can do this, this, and this, and this. And he was like, and the man was like, no, there's no place for your boyfriend. Like, I want you. I don't want him, right? Because that's what men kind of do sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, it's just real, right? So I think that just understanding those realities allows you to kind of just sort of know what's called upon, or what you have to do in order to survive. I think Black men have to have a different set of survival skills from everybody else.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that so many of our brothers, I think, have a hard time surviving is because nobody ever told them that, and they get educated like little white girls, and so they go out into this world and they're not ready for what they're dealing with. They're just playing a real difficult game, and a lot of them have not been prepared or trained for it at all.
It's a different game. It's a different game, and the sooner that's why right now in the history of the world, this is the best time, because we absolutely can create our own jobs. We can create our own businesses in a much simpler way. It's not as hard. Let me tell you something. I be thinking of businesses all the time, and if I think of an idea, I'm executing on it. By Monday, I'm gonna have a new business. Trust and believe that. It's that easy. It might not make $1 million by Monday, but it's something that we have to just think differently about creating our own. To your point on your story, I remember when I was working at HP, and I first started working at HP as a security guard, right? So I was working there. This guy, he was there. He was, front guy, like receptionist guy. I quit there, and then I came back on later as a full-time employee. And I seen the guy, and I'm like, well, he's has a suit on, and I'm like, well, what are you doing now? He goes, I'm an engineer. And I said, oh, did you go to school? He goes, no. One day they came and they asked me if I wanted to be an engineer, and now I'm an engineer. You didn't have to go to college? And I'm thinking, this would have never happened to me or anybody that looks like me. Somebody just come up to me and say, hey, do you want to be an engineer? And I could just be an engineer like that. Like, this was a year later. No college education, nothing. And so the system is designed for, they're gonna look for people that look like them to fill the positions for them. And so the sooner that you realize that you have to, you can't depend on anybody else. I've been to forums where people go to Google and they're complaining Google's not hiring enough Black people. Build your own Google. Stop complaining about what other people are not doing for you and start doing for yourself. Yeah. And the sooner we realize this, the better off we will be.
That's absolutely true. We have to do for self. It's really, really hard to sort of fight the kind of oppression that we're fighting, and to do that under that umbrella that was built by the very oppression that you claim to be fighting against. It just doesn't make any sense. Right. It just doesn't, like I'm going to fight you, but I'm going to beg you for a job at the same time.
That part.
And I can't, that math does not add up. Yeah. And so I'm very hopeful for the community, though. I really think, I think that if we sort of just understand that we have to rewrite the book on Black education and what that looks like for all of us, I think that there are solutions out there. There are opportunities, so for example, just what I call the great redirect. That's something that I really believe in, which
is what
I call the great redirect.
The great redirect,
where basically you say, look, Black folks have 1.3 trillion that we spend, and most of that money goes out the door. It goes out the window to other communities. What if we could redirect just 10% of that, back into our community? 10% of 1.3 trillion is $130 billion.
I was wondering, because I'm not the mathematician like you are, Dr. Boyce. I figured that out. I was carrying one and subtracting. I was like, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. So so 130 billion is, that's enough to create, thousands of millionaires, a few dozen billionaires every year, and create thousands of jobs as well. And so I think that when you talk about us taking both sides of the equation when it comes to the formation of an economy, for example, instead of us always being the consumer, our children should be trained to also be the producer, right? Or instead of being the person looking for capital, we position ourselves to be the investors. And what happens when you take both sides of the economy in that way is that you create a self-circulating system where the money can stay in your own community. So if I'm a consumer, I'm training myself culturally on the importance of buying black. That's just something I'm going to try to do. I'm going to make that a preference, etc. If I'm a producer, then I'm also going to focus on serving the black community, finding ways to find all the things that we buy from other people, and as a producer, providing those things so that people can buy from me instead of buying from him. So for example, with the Black Business School, we're doing the Great Redirect when we would like to participate in that on education. We have thousands of parents who say, instead of me sending my child out to this other place where they don't love them, they're getting an inferior education, they're going to be deep in debt. We'll send them to the Black Business School where it costs, a couple $100s a month, and they can take all these classes and programs and learn all this stuff. And that's a great trade-off, right? So we're lowering the cost, keeping them out of debt, and they're getting a high quality, superior education. And they're also getting the chance of supporting blacks. So that money's circulating, because then when our budget grows, we're able to hire more black people, which again adds to that circulation of the black dollar, as opposed to all that money going out the door. So I think that there's opportunities there. I think it's a matter of us just really kind of understanding that we have to pretty much throw away the book in almost every way that we're trained to think about everything from how our kids are being educated. I believe black children should be educated by black people. I just believe that. No, it's not racist against anybody else. I mean, if other people want to teach us a few things, they can, because there are things you can learn from everybody. But I think that the fundamental core ideologies about, what it means to be a successful human being in this world, a black person is better at teaching that to a black child than a white person is. Because a white person is never really going to teach a black child the importance of being a significant and important member of the black community, like what your role is in the struggle that we're all in together. I think that if all of our children are educated on business, I think that's very important, but not just to manage business, but to actually create business. Why would you just go to school and learn how to manage a business and there are no businesses in your community to manage? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why would I get a driver's license and I can't even afford a car, right? Yeah. So in our community, we're in a place where we don't need a bunch of people getting driver's licenses. We need people that can actually build the car that they can then drive with the license. So long story short, I think that if we sort of look at these key areas, look at where we're spending our money with education, look at where we spend our money with entertainment, look at all the things that we're doing with our resources, and then create the producers that can supply those things, like entertainment. You've got black filmmakers out here making amazing movies. You've got the Black Netflix app, which is called Quayle TV, that has thousands of black movies on it. Why don't we sort of support those things and create jobs in our own space? And we can still, live a better quality, not just the same quality of life, but actually a better quality of life, because we're actually getting things that are more relevant to who we are anyway. And it's a more self-contained system that's not as open to disruption from other people.
What's the name of that platform again, Dr.
Quayle?
It's called Quayle TV, Kweli, Kweli. Yeah. Quayle TV was started by a young black woman. I think she's in her 20s, but I met her one time on we had a Zoom meeting because we were trying to figure out where to distribute our films. And I was super impressed with her. And she's got, just an amazing arsenal of really good black films, short, long, all that stuff. It's really astonishing how much productivity there is in the black film industry from black filmmakers who are not accepted by Hollywood. But they're making really good stuff that black people want to see. And so when Alicia got on Quayle, we were just really excited about all the great stuff that we saw. So it's a great app. I think it's like maybe $4 or $5 a month. And we put our films on there. I know Hidden Colors and stuff like that's on there, but there's a lot of types of content. So I encourage people to take a look.
To your point, I'm Robert. I'm sorry. I know you want to say something, but to your point, you touched on something about the education piece, and I wanted to just point to that, because as a mother of 3 black sons, I understand exactly what you're saying. I've had to, especially in junior high school, I've had to be the advocate, and it's so important, because if you are not the advocate for your children, nobody's going to be. And you said something that I thought was so poignant, because my sons are black boys, and what they do with the teachers, we'll look at them and try to do is compare them to little white girls and treat them as such and have lower tolerance for them. And so I remember when my oldest son, this is the one who invested in stocks, brilliant boy. They said his teacher said, well, he may be ADD. First of all, you're not. She ain't supposed to make that kind of diagnosis, right? So I listened to her at the thing, but I'm like, I know this boy. First of all, I got a hollering baby at home. He's able to focus when we at home. The reason why he's not sitting down in class is because you are not controlling this classroom. I already knew that. And so, so I said, okay, well, we'll consider. Now, she's not even supposed to be telling me this. And then I think about a week or so later, he was up doing his thing, because he was just a busybody. He was just a busybody. That's all. He was just a busybody. And she said something about, she told him, yelled at him in front of the class and said, when are your parents taking you to the doctor? So, of course, yeah, she got, I let her have it.
Way out of pocket.
Oh yeah, way out of pocket. But that I've had to every year, especially them being in elementary and they go to the same school from elementary to high school, I've had to let these teachers know who I am, who my kids are, what I'm going to tolerate and what I'm not going to tolerate. Every year, especially for my oldest son. Now, by the time it got to my other two sons, they knew, oh, this is a Carter, right? I've had to tell them, hey, anybody with the last name Carter up in here, this is what you will do. And very, very articulately, but very firm. They had to know when you're dealing with my kids, you're going to deal with them in a certain way. That's a shame that I had to do this because they already, again, no tolerance for my boys. I already know my boys are good. My boys are brilliant. Yeah, they baby kids sometimes, but I know what they're capable of and what you're not going to do. And this is what we have to do as parents, to make sure that we're going to those schools and we're letting them know that we are present, because if they know that we're present, then they treat them much differently. Absolutely. I remember one time, and so all my kids were going to the same school, all four of them. And so we would go to parent-teacher conference. It'd be me, my husband, and all four of my kids. And they would see us. We go to all the conferences, right? And they just look at us. They're like, it's a lot of y'all. And one of the teachers said, I guess he was new. He said, well, now that I know that he has support, then so they know that if you don't have support, they're going to treat you whatever kind of way that you allow them to.
Yep.
But if they know that you're there, that they know that you're present, they're going to treat your children a lot differently than if you weren't there. So I think it's so important, if you're able to educate your own kids, that would be fabulous. But for those who aren't, even if you're working, whatever you're doing, send an email. Let the teachers know that you're present, that you're there, because it makes a huge difference in your children's academia. I promise you.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. I mean, people act very different with your stuff, your property, if you will, when they know you're watching.
Oh yeah.
Every CEO in America, I think, knows that. Y'all are bosses. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So like even with the people on my team, sometimes I'm not really watching, but I'll send a signal to make people feel that I'm watching, and the behavior is very different.
Oh, it changes.
Yeah, when people think you ain't paying attention, then your agenda don't matter. It becomes their agenda. Yeah, and they go for anything, your child, your business, or anything. Like it took me a long time to learn that, as a business owner, is that the people who work for your business do not care about your business the way you do. They care about their paycheck. That's their business. And so if you don't ask if you're not really on it, if you're not paying attention, then next thing you know, everything will be going left.
Yeah.
And I think with your kids is the same thing. You got to fight for your kids, and also when your kids come home. I'm a believer that education is as much about values and culture as anything else, right? So when we send our children to other people to educate them, which is perfectly fine, just know that they're educating them based on their value system. They're teaching the things they think are important, the way of viewing the world that they believe in. And so you have to make sure you counter that, or you supplement that when they come home, and let them know, like, these are the things that matter in our household. And that's going to guide them, because the thing is, being uneducated is one thing, that's almost like an intellectual version of what would be like maybe sitting still. Like, you imagine an uneducated person as an object that's sitting still, and an educated person like a missile, that's going to go a long distance. But if that missile's aimed in the wrong direction, or aimed at the wrong person, then that missile can become more destructive than the object that sits still. So I don't think that the uneducated Black person is nearly as much of a threat to the community as the miseducated Black person, because they're misguided. They're very confident in what they know, even though they don't know anything, or
they don't know shit.
Yeah, right, exactly. Very confident in the fact that you don't know shit, but run around like you are the shit, like you know everything, you know, and I'm telling you, like our whole community gets left, you know, in the dark by miseducated Negroes running around here acting like they know everything, you know. And so with our children,
I can name a few of them.
you know what I'm talking about. Some of them on TV, you know what, you know, all of that. And so values, I think, is just really important. You know, or when you learn the what's, it's very important for them to know the why. You know, like, okay, you're going to learn about wealth. Well, why is wealth important? Why does it matter? You know, and it could be something basic like, okay, you want to have a nice lifestyle, you want to have personal freedom, and it could be even deeper things like, you know, wealth is the key to power in America. You know, the freedom for Black people, right? The best opportunity you have to help your people is to understand and control resources, right? So I think understanding the why, if you really instill the why, then what I found is that the what and the how, you know, they kind of fill in on their own. Yep. You know, like I knew this guy. He was a brother. He was about 31 years old. And he was a millionaire, and he's an entrepreneur, and making a lot of money. And I remember I asked him. I said, "So, how did you learn? You know, where did this entrepreneurial spirit come from?" And he said, "It came from my father." And I said, "Really?" I said, "So, what did your father do? Did he teach you, you know, how to start a business and all?" He said, "No." He said, "No, he didn't know how to start a business." I said, "Really? What? Your father wasn't an entrepreneur?" He said, "No, he was a truck driver." I said, "Really? Well, how did your father, you know, inspire you to become the entrepreneur that you are?" He said, "Well, my dad used to just say, well, every Black man who want to be free better have his own business." That's all his father would say. He just planted that one little seed. So when he went to college and they asked him, "Well, what do you want to major in?" He said, "Well, my dad used to say every Black man who wants to be free should have his own business." So he studied entrepreneurship. Wow. And that's what led to it. So planting that seed to me is like it's so critical. You know, the seeds my grandmother planted in me about wealth drove me to do a lot of the things that I did. So people don't have to know. You don't have to be an expert on things to guide your kids in the right direction. Just be mindful and present in terms of understanding the significance of your influence and making sure that is the dominant influence on your child.
Yeah. Amen.
I love that. I love everything that we've covered today. I mean, it has been a master class. That, you know, we should
really
put this.
I love it.
Somebody needs to put that in the feed right now.
Woo,
this has been a master class featuring Dr. Boyce Watkins. So listen, I just want to tell you, man, it's been such an honor and a pleasure. I've admired you from a distance for years, right? And I know I've been singing amen when you getting into it, going through. I mean, that's right, Dr. Boyce. Yeah, that's right. So it has been a really cool experience. But you know, I've been sitting here thinking. My mind just wandered sometime. I was one of those kids, like your son, Constance. So I'm sitting here thinking, I wonder what's in his iPod. Like, what does Dr. Boyce Watkins listen to? You know what I'm saying? So I just want to kind of put you on the spot.
Yeah,
the mind of Robert, right? Listen to this. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there. Check this out. If you had to choose, right, for one whole hour to listen to Aretha Franklin or Whitney Houston, who are you going with?
Aretha Franklin.
Really?
Hands down. You didn't even think about it.
No, Whitney had a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
But I think it's more like, when I think about Whitney, I can't help but think about crack. And I don't like
this guy.
Crack. I know that's a terrible thing to say because the poor lady's, you know, deceased and God rest her soul.
Oh my goodness.
You know, I followed the Whitney Bobby years, and that kind of messed it up. It's like you know, Aretha was always maintained like a regal presence, and I just admire that so much. You know, in a Black woman, and Whitney was up there too, and then it was just like. Ooh, you know,
crack is whack. Crack is whack. I do cocaine.
yeah, but Whitney. I mean. Okay,
I got one.
Okay.
Faith Evans or Mary J. Blige?
Mary J. Blige.
Okay. Who was the other choice?
Faith Evans.
Oh wow, check that out. I got an even better one. Wait. Dr. Boyce, you're not ready for this one.
What?
You ready?
I'm ready.
MJ or Prince?
Oh. Woo. Well, Prince, my woman will kill me. If I don't say Prince, my woman will kill me. Because I told her, I told her, I said, Prince screamed bisexual to me. And she said, no, that is a masculine man. Hey, ain't no man more masculine than Prince. I'm like, the man wore panties and high heel boots. Like, you know.
Listen, you do not get to talk about Prince like that.
I know.
Not.
That's what she says. She says, I know that's so sacrilegious. I mean, I love Prince, though.
It is.
I admire Prince so much. You know, first of all, just as an activist, you know, he was 100% black.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I hate that story about, you know, the whole thing not having a will and all that.
I'm surprised
behind that. I think as an artist, I feel like he was a better artist because he really just pushed the envelope and just did things on stage that you can't replicate.
He's a consummate musician too.
Yeah. I mean, he was just, I mean, to me, that definition of an artist, just this person that can manifest amazing amounts of creativity. Prince wins that contest to me.
Everybody in the feed is saying Prince. Everybody's saying Prince. Nobody said Michael Jackson. Everybody said
check that out.
Yeah. Michael Jackson, but Michael was nice in the sense that he was such a that Spike Lee documentary really peeped out in terms of how hardworking and determined he was, and his talent. I mean, was just phenomenal, and he was incredibly prolific and productive. You know, just in terms of being a hit maker. But I do agree with you in that Prince. Michael was a little more, in my opinion, more corporate than Prince. Yeah. You know, so maybe Prince is like some exquisite, exotic restaurant, whereas Michael Jackson might be like a Ruth Chris. You know what I mean? Or something, something that's like very nice and fancy, but they got 1,000 of them everywhere. You know, it's sort of mass produced. So I think it's hard to compare the two, but they're clearly different. And
Michael Jackson was great. You can't take that away from him. But musicianship. Prince was not only a great musician, he could not only play everything, but he mastered all the instruments. And I'm a musician. I play the bass. And so for him, just to see him sit down and play the bass, and then for him to play the keys, and then for him to play the guitar, and then for him to get on at the level he did it
on. Wow.
You know, that's an excellent point. Yeah, I think we have to end up giving that one to Prince.
Yeah.
Safe bet.
All right, I got one.
Okay.
Biggie or Tupac?
Tupac.
Why?
Because Tupac possessed the type of energy I can relate to a little more.
He's a rebel like you, Dr. Boyce.
Yeah. I like Pac's energy, his spirit. I identify with him. I'm the same age as Pac. Like we're about maybe a month apart in birthdays, I think, something like that. So I was right there, same age during all of the chaos going on with him. And I hated the way it ended for him because, you know, I think you can learn life lessons from just everything you see. And one of the things I always just started trying to do a lot of is when I was younger, I would learn vicariously. I was like, I'm not going to go out and just make a bunch of mistakes. I'm going to learn from other people's mistakes.
And when I live into that.
Yeah. And I just think about that whole gangster rap era when rap took a turn to the worst and started becoming about, you know, bitches and hoes and killing and all this other stuff, which I don't think that was a coincidence or an accident. I think
that was all planned out.
Yeah. And then you got this era where right in the mid 90s, it was like all these people were at risk of dying or going down. And so you had the guys that were big that made it out of that era, you know, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, who are all, you know, billionaires now, Diddy, or multimillionaires. And then you had the guys that didn't make it. You had, you know, Tupac, Biggie, Suge Knight, Eazy-E, who didn't have happy endings. And I think that there's a clear connection in terms of strategy and how they were thinking. You know, I feel like Snoop and all those guys and Cube and all those, they were thinking more long term. I think they wanted to live to their 40s, 50s, 60s, whereas Pac took things a little bit too far. You know, I mean, when he made that song "Hit 'Em Up," I have a friend that's a prominent rapper, and he said, man, when I heard that song, I said to somebody's about to get killed. Yeah. You know, because the first verse was like, oh my God, you know, and so it's like this amazing expression of talent. He always took it to the limit. You admired that fearlessness about him, but there was a lack of but at the same time, there was a part of it that I felt wasn't genuinely who he was or who he wanted to be. I think he got too caught up in the moment, too caught up in the like, I'm gonna keep it 100, I'm gonna pull out the gun, I'm gonna be out front. But when really that, you know, for a man of his prominence to take that disposition was just extremely risky. I don't think
he had such a brilliant mind, though. You know, if you ever listen to, you know, some of the things that he would say, like he got it. He really got it.
Oh, he really got it. Yeah. And he would have been
shame.
He would have been amazing if he'd lived longer. I think he would have been he would have been a prolific artist. First of all,
absolutely,
just so productive, and I just love that. I think he was so smart. He would have been a great revolutionary. I think he would have just done some amazing things. So it was sad to see him go. But I think just in terms of, you know, pure musical, lyrical ability, I just think he had an edge on Biggie because I just feel like his body of work was just better.
I like Biggie. Biggie was great with the nouns and the verbs too, though. You know, he had the onomatopoeias and the, you know, the metaphors and similes, and you know, I love that about Biggie too. So I'm torn. I can't. Well, you know what? I'm from the West Side, so I'm gonna go ahead and go with Pop.
Oh my goodness!
Are we throwing up gang signs now? I don't even know how to. Okay.
What you say, Rob?
So listen, you know I'm a Biggie guy. I'm East Coast, but listen, I'm gonna stir the pot up. I don't think Dr. Boyce is ready for this right here.
Okay.
You ready? You ready,
Yeah,
Constance?
ready. All right.
Tyler Perry or Spike Lee?
Oh, Spike Lee. Gotta be.
He said that way too fast. You said that way too fast.
Yeah, and you know what? Because Tyler's great in that he's a smart man. He accomplished a lot. I talked to him on the phone just one time, and I liked, you know, he seemed like a nice person. I feel like he's just a genuinely good person, and that's what I admire about him. A couple of critiques I might make is, number one, you know, that Madea, like, black man put on dress stuff is not, that's, you know, that's too much.
He said he hates it too, but it was something like he had to do.
Yeah, for somebody that hates it, he does it an awful lot. You know, I mean, you know, Madea, that's $1 billion brand now. You know, so come on now. I don't know if you hate it that much. But then the other piece is, I think with Tyler Perry Studios, I would like to see more stars come out from under his umbrella. I can't think of any significant writers or directors that have come out of Tyler.
He said he writes everything himself. He don't share.
Right, which was a huge mistake. It feeds into this whole HNIC kind of mentality, like it's all about me and I'm the only one, and I'm, you know, like it's a diva kind of thing. And you know, you contrast that to say Ava DuVernay, who does a wonderful job of giving opportunities to lots and lots of people. And so I think that's something I think Tyler could add to his arsenal, at the very least, to be able to diversify the type of content that comes out of the studio, because I can't watch anything that he makes. I did watch that one movie, the last one, the Amazing Grace, The Fall from Grace. You know, and it wasn't as bad as the internet said. Like, people were really dogging out the movie, and I could see why they liked the storyline. But his films do kind of have like that first grader level of intrigue, like almost very overly formulaic.
Yeah, you're right. You pretty much know what's getting ready to happen.
Right. And then to find out that he creates all these characters, like how do 10 black women live inside your body at one time? Like that right there is kind of weird, you know. So I think that if you are going to serve black women, then really serve them. Like, let black women join the team and be part of the writers group and share some of the spotlight and some of the glory with them. And you know, whereas with Spike Lee, I think that there was a jealousy thing with him in terms of why he went out of his way to hate on Tyler Perry. I thought that was unnecessary, but it looks like Spike kind of got over that. And if you just look at his body of work, I mean, Spike, he's been doing this for 30 years now, and at the highest levels. And so you got to give him that respect.
Yeah.
I got one more. Since we're talking about Spike, you know Bo Better Blues, right?
Yeah.
All right. So are you more Bleak in the Denzel Washington character, or are you more Wesley Snipes?
I would say I'm more Wesley Snipes. I identify more.
I figured you would say that.
Yeah,
really?
I like both of those guys. I mean, those guys are just awesome. They're legends, you know. And Mo Better Blues, they were great. But yeah, Wesley's my guy. I felt real bad to see him go, you know, have the troubles that he had. Yeah. And also maybe it's personal. I know that he's a big supporter of Dr. Claude Anderson in Powernomics.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's one of the few that Dr. Anderson mentions on a regular basis. And you know, but I mean, Denzel, I think, is just such a class act as a human being. Like, I think with guys like that, because they're part of our community, we don't just see them in a movie role. We see them just as the entirety of what they are. And I just think Denzel has done it about as well as anybody could do it, you know. And he's I'm really proud of him. I have a lot of respect for that guy.
Even though they gave him an Oscar for Training Day.
That was
how they do. Y'all know how they do. Come on.
Right. That's racism 101, right?
Yeah. But check this out. Listen, Constance, you know, we were talking about this the other day, and not to dwell on Wesley's misstep, but there was a time in my life where I had a bunch of cats in my ear, and they were telling me about this rule where you're not really a citizen and you don't have to pay taxes because of ... You can go research the Constitution. And there was this whole movement of some frats that were like proliferating this thing. And so years later, I never really jumped into the water because I figured, you know, I studied my history and I knew that taxes were a real thing. You know, Marvin Gaye said it best. There are three things in life. There's taxes, death, and trouble, right? So did you ever hear about that, you know, not really having to pay taxes because of your sovereignty? Did you ever hear that stuff?
What hotep told you that?
I don't even think the hoteps are gonna take responsibility for that, man. I think that's man, that you mess around, don't pay your taxes.
Y'all go with that. I ain't playing with the I, R, and the S. I'm good on that.
People I don't mess with. The I, R, and the S. I'm good. That's right. That's right.
All right. Before we let you go, one last thing. I was just thinking about this. You know, you've been in quite a bit of controversy, like, you know, Lizzo, and, you know, you've been being disinvited to different venues because of the controversy. You had some beef with homeboy. What's the Hotep thing? Omar.
No, we were talking about
that. So what do you think, like, for you, the controversies have done for, like, your brand? Has it been good, bad? Because somebody told me, you know, whether it's good or bad, any publicity is good publicity. How has the controversy been for you?
You know, it's one of those things where the impact is not what you think it is. Like, you know, if somebody, because I think stuff like that didn't bother me. So the Lizzo thing didn't bother me at all. It was fascinating to watch, you know, that all my friends heard about it. And it was fascinating to see how the media just ran with a narrative.
It did.
That's
not even what you were saying. And that's the funny thing too, right?
Right. And that should tell you a lot about the media and how they operate. You know, not one of these white journalists, you know, called me to say, well, what were you trying to say? Or maybe you have a point that marketing obesity that's killing people is not a healthy thing. They didn't say that. They just ran with their story. But I was ready for that, right? And it was just fascinating because we got kids in the house that like Lizzo's music, and I had to take the time to explain to them, look, I don't hate Lizzo. I'm just talking about the environment that creates a Lizzo and elevates Lizzo above all the other Black women in the community that are doing great things, that are not, you know, engaging in this kind of buffoonery that really bothers me. But with that said, the in terms of just the publicity, it's one of those things where I believe you got to figure out, like, what are your goals? What are you really trying to do? I will say this. The publicity that's probably got the most attention is or the hardest to adjust to is when somebody just flat out lies on you.
Lies. Yeah.
When somebody's like, oh, he's a scammer, he's a fraud, he's this, he's that, you know, that bothered me because, you know, it's like, well, this isn't true. You want to go and you want to say, no, this isn't true. And even that's not really going to have an impact as long as you're doing the right thing. I mean, you have to be an ethical person for it to apply. But, you know, if you're just doing what you do and doing you to the best of your ability, you're usually going to win. What I found was that, sure, there were people out there, they're the haters, they're the trolls and all this other stuff. And a lot of times these are just people that have nothing better to do than to just say something negative because, you know, maybe they're just unhappy people, or maybe they just don't like something about you. But the people that really ride with you, they ride with you.
They ride with you.
Like, if you're doing right by them, they're going to do right by you. You know, and I can say I one area that I put a lot of energy into is really doing my best to do right by the people that will be their ear. You know, I give 100% day in, day out, and I'm super consistent about it. And what I find is that at the end of the day, this is something I said to Vicky Dillard, because Vicky Dillard is a great friend of mine and just killing it on Fly Nubian Queen. As I told her, I said, you know, really, honestly, Vicky, I said, when you're out here just doing your thing and you're just you're living in your purpose the way you are, I said, you're kind of like the sun. You just shine. And I said, so your critics are kind of spitting at the sun, you know? And I said, the sun, if critics are spitting at the sun doesn't have to spit back.
Unbothered.
The sun just got to keep shining.
That's
it. Just keep shining. And there's power. The sun has power. So there's light, there's heat that comes from the sun. There's a gravitational field that the sun creates, that where all the planets are revolving around the sun, and the sun's not revolving around shit. The sun revolves around the center of the galaxy, but the sun ain't revolving around no planet. You know what I mean? So the sun just sits there and shines, and everybody else gets in line and reacts to whatever the sun is doing. So my goal at the end of the day is keep shining. You know, just shine. And so the madder I get, the more I'm going to shine. You know, which means you're exuding more power, more of a gravitational field, and more of the planets are going to react to you. All the space debris is going to react to the gravitational field. So you can't go out here in the world and live in your purpose to the best of your ability, give 100% every day, and shine that hard without somebody in your universe reacting to whatever you're doing. So process it that way. It really, I don't lose any sleep about it. It doesn't bother me at all.
You know, and that's the thing about it, Boyce, is that when you are living in your purpose and you are living in authenticity, there is nothing that nobody can do or say to knock you off your throne. There is nothing anybody can do or say if you are doing what you are supposed to be doing and living in your God-given purpose. And I encourage everybody, you know, be the best you that you could be, because nobody can be Boyce. Yes. Nobody can be Constance. Nobody can be Robert. We can only be the best version of ourselves. And there's going to be haters. There's going to be detractors. But so what? Who cares? Keep shining anyway. I love it.
Yes, get in your zone like Prince playing the guitar. You know, just tearing it up with Prince
be you
on that face. You know, he's just being great. You know, just great.
Yeah. Thank you. This was great. Robert, do you have any last words for Dr. Boyce?
No, in the words of the great philosopher Flavor Flav, wow.
This was absolutely magnificent. Thank you for spending damn near 2 hours with us of your time. And I know that your time is valuable. So we appreciate it. You have given us so many nuggets, and people are still on. They still hanging on. They are loving you. So thank you. Thank you for being on our platform. And we appreciate you. I'm ready to come back. I was ready to go back to the convention. I got to wait a whole year, Doc. I
know it's so crazy, but it's okay though. We're linking up here, you know, and I'll say this, you know, normally I you know, if I do an interview, it might be 20 minutes or 15 minutes, something like that. I was glad to do 2 hours with you two, because now, Robert, I just got a chance to meet you, brothers. It was wonderful to meet you. And I'll say, Constance, I have a lot of respect for you. And that was why you could talk, you know, you could have kept me as long as you wanted, because I have a tremendous amount of admiration for the great work that you do. And Robert, I look forward to getting to know about your work as well.
Absolutely.
So this was an exception. I don't think I've done a 2-hour interview in a very long time, but I had an absolute ball, and I appreciate you all having me. Thank you.
Yeah, we love you. We love you. We love you. Thank you so much. Enjoy your night, guys. Thank you guys for listening.
All right. See you soon.
Peace.
All right. Doc, you are the absolute bomb. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you both. And did Constance disappear?
She's the administrator, so I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna bounce on out of here. So thank you very much,
brother.
You have a good evening. See you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
All right.